Welcome, everyone, to episode 44 of the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor, and I don't have just one guest. I have two guests today. These are two guys that I've known for a long, long time. Go back, man, almost 8 years now, probably longer than that, because I kind of grew up in the Tampa St. Pete area, and especially when I started playing in bands, and these guys were always guys that I had crossed paths with. For many years, they were in a band called Perfect Flaw, and certainly they played a lot of shows with different bands I've been in, especially Impatient Nation. I was with that band from 2009 to 2012. So it was one of those things. I think Perfect Flaw was probably the band we played the most amount of shows with in that time. So much so we just started to laugh about it. It just started to become ridiculous. But the one thing I can say about these two guys is that they had been in that band Perfect Flaw for so many years, and there had been so many guys coming in and out of that band, but it was mainly these two guys. I could tell, you can always tell who's driven, who's putting a lot of time and work into it, and these guys had invested so much into that band and put so much time and money in that band, and they always kind of stuck it out. And then when I ended up moving to Melbourne and then later to Orlando, I kind of lost touch, hadn't really heard too much from them. And now I find out that they're playing, that they have a brand new cover band called Disasterpiece, and they've been playing a lot in the Tampa St. Pete area. They've been playing outside the area quite a bit, so it's really cool for me to catch up with these two guys. So please welcome to the Phoenix Report, Chris Kennedy and Lenny Kortas.
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
Good. I mean, like I said, man, you guys have, things have been a little bit active. I should say things have been a little quiet, sort of in the Perfect Flaw camp, over the last couple of years. I know you guys have gone through so many different musicians in that band over the years, but then I hear about Disasterpiece. And what you guys have been doing, playing some cover shows, and that got me curious, and and it got me to talking to you guys again. Not that we fell out of touch, but how things go when people move away. It becomes harder and harder to keep in touch over the years. So this just made me think that now that Disasterpiece was up and running, finally you guys found a lead singer. I know you guys were looking for that for a while. I figured this was the perfect excuse for us to kind of get together and catch up over a podcast and just see what was going on in your world. So tell me how it's been so far. When it comes to the latest, you guys have played a handful of shows as Disasterpiece now. How has that been going?
Shows or so. We're loving it. It's so different playing covers than doing the original scene. We got frustrated with the original scene because we would put in so much time and money and everything like you were just saying, but there seemed to be no payoff. We would play for, sometimes as little as 20 minutes on a stage, maximum of 40, 45 minutes. And, of course, nobody in the audience knows the songs because they're not played on the radio constantly. And what else?
It's hard to get them out to come to the show. You have a small window. You're with 5 other bands. Nobody gets paid. You're begging your friends. You're at the bar all day, waiting to play. You're there at 3 p.m. load in, and you play at 8:30 or something. And you leave, 11 at night. And, like you said, it got frustrating. And then you have to rehearse a lot, maintain, the songs that you're writing, and then people are coming and going because there's not a big...
There's no incentive. Yeah, it sounds fun at first, but then it's literally all work and no reward. So that's what kind of, ended Perfect Flaw is having all work and no reward. There's no payoff. But then, what happened was we're just kind of sitting around and we're like, man, we don't want to just stop making music. We love music. Our first thought was well, what if we did a tribute band? We saw this Queensryche tribute band a few years ago. We played with them at the LA Hangout, and we're like, well, what if that's their favorite band, but what if we did a favorite band of ours, which would we do all Killswitch Engage songs and all Bullet for My Valentine songs, and we could call it Killswitch from My Bullet or something like that, or Bullet for My Killswitch or something.
Sure.
And then after that we're thinking, well, why just limit ourselves to just those two? What if we just picked all our favorite bands and all our favorite songs and did that? And then me and Lenny had never learned any cover songs before. Maybe just a couple of riffs here and there, but never like a full cover song. So when we first started doing that, that was like a real big challenge. But before I get too deep in that, basically, we picked out all these songs, and then we decided like all these, all our favorite bands, all our favorite songs, and we just decided we're going to do this. And we didn't know how to get members at first, so we decided to make a YouTube channel. And once we made the YouTube channel, we just recorded them up to YouTube, so that way we could like make advertisements on Craigslist, and people could see, here's the songs, here's us, here's what we sound like, here's what we look like, here's us. And then boom, we figured it was a really good way to connect with a lot of people. Instead of like describing it in words, we could just show people what we were doing,
And it was proof. They could believe it. They can see us, hear us. You can put the links right in the ad and say, check out these songs. And then we ended up finishing the whole entire list while we were looking for people and making 50 YouTube videos, which got us to play the songs better, really learn them, understand which parts he's playing, which parts I'm playing, realize which songs we didn't know as good as we thought we knew. You go to record it on a video, and we just did it, it had to be one perfect take where neither of us messed up, so we would play these songs. We'd make a night where, okay, this is the song we're going to get a perfect recording of, and we would just get one. Like we worked on Indestructible for Disturbed was a real challenge. Mm-hmm. We didn't get it done the first night. We had to come back a second night, and
yeah, we're playing for like 5 hours, 6 hours, like just trying to like both play it perfectly one night, and we couldn't, and that was like our first song that usually it took several hours to get like a good take that we were both happy with, because
on the harder songs.
Yeah. Because there's no overdubs, we're just literally playing it live in front of the camera.
That's true. I had seen some of your original YouTube videos from a couple years ago. I know you guys originally put out some like guitar tutorial videos, which I thought was a smart way to get some hits, and certainly people love going to see that, especially like I used to do a bunch of like YouTube videos myself of just like playing and singing acoustic songs, and people would always be like, "What are the chords? What are this? What are this?" So it's that's a smart way to do it. To also kind of spread the info there while promoting yourselves, and I think that was sort of a smart way to do it, as opposed to just like sort of playing it yourselves. But there was that extra sort of educational element to it.
Yeah, we do. Me personally, I definitely improved a lot as a guitar player, forcing myself to learn these songs. Some of them were just out of my skill range. I just had to like learn new techniques, learn new abilities, just get better to play the songs. And there's some doubt in that process, because you have this big list of songs you want to tackle, and you don't know. We didn't pick them based on what we thought we could play. We just picked them based on our favorite ones, and then we're like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And there's lots of doubt. Yeah, like I felt like several times, like a couple of the easy songs, okay, I got these, but then when they started getting tough, I'm like, I can't do this. I was just thinking, there's no way I can do this. But then I just kept persisting on, and then boom, before you know it, you got 40 songs. And 40 songs to an original band, that sounds like crazy, Usually you might have like 8, okay, 7 songs, we're ready to play out, and then we'll add a few more later,
Yeah.
As an original band, but then as a cover band, like you can't just play for 45 minutes. You have to play for 3 hours.
3 sets usually.
Yeah.
And songs, a 3-minute song. Even 12 3-minute songs is even a full set. So some sets could be longer than 12 songs. You might have a 15-song set. So.
Absolutely. Did you guys ever feel like I don't know how it was when you guys were kids and first starting to learn how to play guitar. Did you almost feel like you were kind of going back to that, especially not playing covers for a while? It's almost like you're rediscovering the instrument in a way, because you're going back. Because I don't know about you guys, but certainly for me when I started, that was like how I learned to play. Would just be like going and learning some of my favorite songs, and now here you are all these years later, kind of going back and doing that again. That must have been fun.
I think it's neat hearing when you play songs from a new artist and you play something that you're like, wow, I'm playing the song. Like there's definitely a novelty to it. It's exciting to hear, different sounds, different solos, and you have to like learn all these different nuances of different artists that are totally different than your brain would think of. Like you go from a Korn song to a Pantera solo to, some Papa Roach, like sound effect in there, and you are discovering a lot about the instrument and the tones and the patches and all that.
One thing, like I was kind of like, with my playing for an original band, like I was like really established in exactly what I want to sound like. I'm like, okay, I play in drop C, and these are the types of chords that I use, and these are the techniques that I use, and these are the specific tones and sounds that I want to achieve what I'm doing. But then when we're playing the covers, you have to learn all these like techniques that you might normally not do, and different tunings. Like I'm only doing drop C, but then it's like, okay, well, then now I appreciate, regular tuning like E half step down, drop D half step down, drop C, or, any of the variations in between. So I really, really appreciate the different tunings quite a bit more. And the other thing is, before, I always tried to make all my instruments almost be identical. Like, okay, they all have to have these pickups and, these strings. Where now the instruments, I'm like, okay, this guitar is good for this thing, so I'm going to keep this guitar for this thing. So it's like really expanded my, I guess, like sonic horizons, maybe a good way to put it.
Yeah, no. That makes a lot of sense, and I think, and especially, I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that, especially if they don't play guitar, that if you're covering all of these different types of material, especially in this genre, you get a lot of different bands who like to play around with different tones and different tunings. Like you mentioned Korn, you mentioned, Godsmack, and I know you guys definitely cover a wide range of I mean, it's all hard rock stuff, but it's still a lot of different bands and different material, especially if you guys are looking to more closely recreate what's on the record there. And knowing you guys as well as I do, I'm guessing you guys want to make it as close to the record as possible. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's actually a great segue into it. Yeah, like we wanted to replicate CD perfect, like what we're doing, note for note perfection. So, a lot of times on recording, there's more than one guitar. So we have, two guitarists, which is really great. So we can really recreate everything really well. So, the first step in learning all these covers when we first started learning is we had to really communicate, like, okay, like, we download Guitar Pro tabs off the internet and go through the good ones and see which ones are good and see which ones are bad. And, then like, okay, Lenny, you got to play this part and I got to play this part. And we have to figure out who's playing what. And, we had to really do a lot of coordinating with that.
It's interesting that you mentioned Disturbed earlier on because, in a way, you guys are getting the chance to do something that Disturbed isn't really able to do live because they only have Dan Donegan on guitar. They only have one guitar player, at least on stage. So, I mean, in the studio, obviously, that you can track stuff over top of each other, but I know Disturbed doesn't have like a second guitar player on the side for the live shows. So in a way, you guys get to do things that maybe even the bands themselves might not always be able to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of bands on our list of covers that only have one guitarist, and we have two. So there's Mudvayne, there's Drowning Pool,
White Zombie.
Yeah, we have the Rhythm,
Avenged Sevenfold. They have two guitarists, but they do even more layers. They even do even more layers. So one thing that we do, like Avenged Sevenfold, like whenever they do the harmonies, like one guy's doing the melody, the other guy's doing the harmony, but where did the rhythm go? The rhythm's just gone, and just the bass is playing. But what we did was I still play the rhythm, then Lenny will play the melody, but we have a harmonizer on his actual pedal.
There you go.
All pre-programmed to the right key, smart, intelligent harmonizer, so we can, and sometimes recreate the CD more accurate to the CD than sometimes the band is doing.
It gives us a bar to set. There's a bar to shoot for. When we're recreating a song, we know if we're hitting the mark or not, if it sounds perfect or not. So, when you have an original band, you just play what you think is your best effort, but you don't really have like, a target. So when you're trying to recreate a song, you have a target, and until it sounds as close to that as possible, you got to keep working at it, keep practicing. So, and then in the process of learning all these 40 songs, when we got beyond 40, we got to, for me, I got to a point where I have this like confidence, like, okay, I can play these types of songs, and you get better at the learning process. You get better at analyzing songs, and if we can't find something on, an instruction, you can almost look up the performance of the original artist and watch where his hands are, and so we're like dissecting things and really, scientifically analyzing these songs to like figure out what the hell they're doing sometimes. And a lot of times it's not even as mysterious as you think before you learn it, and then you're like, that wasn't so bad. Or sometimes it's like, oh, this is way more complicated than it sounds. So
Sure, and it's definitely good to check out different sort of these different renditions of these songs to figure out what you guys like to play best. Because sometimes, bands will record stuff one way and they'll play live and it'll have a completely different feel to it. So it's good to at least make that distinction. And yeah, you're trying to recreate the records, but you guys are still your own guys, so you'll be able to do it kind of your own way as well. And you got to do obviously what feels right for you guys too. And it doesn't surprise me certainly that you guys want to get that level of precision, because there's just four of you in the band. There's you two on the two guitars. You have a singer, you have a drummer, but there's no bass player. You guys have been using bass tracks lately.
Yes.
So how has that process been going around? Do you guys are you guys able to like get the bass tracks from somewhere else? Have you been recording them yourselves, or how has that been working?
A little bit of both. So basically, what I'll do is, maybe we should talk about the reason why we're doing that in the first place, real quick.
I have probably a theory, and I don't know if this is true, but I just assumed you guys just wanted one less guy you had to split the money with.
Well, that's not the original. That's an advantage of it,
right.
But it's not the original reason. Like when we were in Perfect Flaw, like it seemed like the bass player, those were the people that like recycled and came in and out the most.
They're hard to find, and I don't know why that is.
And a lot of times, like, we're like, okay, well, we can't find a bass player, but we can find a guitarist and just have them play bass, But then
a
lot of times, like, they love it at first. They're like, yeah, this is great. We're in a band. We're ready to go on stage. But then they're like, oh, I really wish I was playing guitar. And the audience doesn't care. They don't even know the difference between a bass guitar and a regular guitar and all this stuff. So
that is unfortunate, and as a bass player myself, it's difficult for me to admit that, but that is true. A lot of times it gets a little buried in the mix, especially with this genre of music. But no, sorry, go on.
Especially on record, like bass is definitely more of a live instrument, where live you can feel it, you can feel the sonic vibrations, and a lot of times the guitar is what gets lost in the mix live. A lot of times if it's not mixed properly. So the bass players seem to be like just one of those revolving doors, and then I remember we had to play like an emergency show where we didn't have a bass player, but I had all the bass tracks. We always used to play to a click track
with Perfect
Flaw back in the day, and so there was an emergency show where we didn't have a bass player, so I had to take the actual bass tracks from our CD recording and then just put them like to the click track, and we did that once, and then we never had the idea till a lot longer later on to use bass tracks exclusively. So we decided we did it the one show, but that could have like solved the problem back in Perfect Flaw with the revolving door, because we'd always have to like, okay, the bass player left, then we have to find spend 6 weeks finding a bass player, then another 6 weeks training a bass player before we finally start to play out again, for example.
Right. So, you would at least had that as a backup. Yeah,
we could have had that as a backup back then. To not stop the momentum. We always had the momentum problem. But so this time around, we just decided, like, well, why do we even need a bass player? Because of
backing tracks, keyboards, explosions, all the stuff you hear on the CD, Chris has figured out a way to get those tracks or create the tracks so that you hear them live. So it's just literally like, the beginning of the Papa Roach song, there's that carousel music, or the beginning of Disturbed, there's like, spooky sounds or whatever.
Explosion noises and gunfire.
So it's like that plus bass. If there's a horn section in a Avenged Sevenfold song, we're not going to like audition horn players.
Right. No,
so
of course.
It all went along that same thing. And another thing is that we thought, we didn't really think people would have a problem live because it's a cover project that there was a bass track. Mm-hmm. But some people, thought, oh, eventually you're going to have to get a bass player. We had a lot of other people's opinions, like, oh, you have to play dance music, or you have to do this, or you have to do that in order to book it, to sell it, for people to enjoy it. And
you have to play what the girls want. Everybody always said that the girls want, and you can't play too much heavy stuff, And
it's really nice to go out and do shows and prove that wrong every time, It's really sad.
I imagine, of course, it all depends on the material. It all depends on where you get booked too. I imagine because that certain places obviously want a certain thing, and of course that's their right. That's their thing. But if you're able to find enough places that'll book you guys that want that kind of music, then that's a good thing. As long as they're paying you well, then that's good, man.
We're not going to play, the lobby at the mall or something, but
right.
We're not going to play a country bar or like a beach bar where like everybody wants to hear Jimmy Buffett, I guess.
Right.
But there are a lot of venues.
I'm suddenly imagining like heavy versions of Jimmy Buffett coming out, but I'm saying you might have something there. But
it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
There you go. Of course, those are all valid reasons, obviously. But that being said, if the right guy came along, like in the area, who was a bass player who you guys jammed with, would you consider it?
Yeah, we consider it, but there'd have to be a lot of things to consider. Like one, like we already have a bass player using the backing tracks that play all the songs note for note perfect. So like the guy would literally we'd have to have an incentive. Like he'd have to like come in and be able to play all the stuff note for note perfect on day one. We don't want to sit there and train him because we're already an active band, and that we don't have a bass player that is backing tracks. And then what else is he bringing to the band? Does he have like a giant RV and a bunch of connections or something, or like he's the owner of some club or owner of a series? There has to be something more than just like some guy with the bass, because we already have the bass coming through the speakers already. So we don't, unless there's like a real reason. There is no reason, unless there's something really significant,
Right. That's understandable. Do you guys ever worry? Because I know you guys are very very much sticklers for note perfection, and there's nothing wrong with that. But do you ever worry that you might lose a little bit of that spontaneity that comes with playing? Like I imagine you guys try to recreate everything down to the solos and down to the hand placement. But do you ever find like room to kind of put in your own feel to it, or is that just not something that you're interested in, or? How do you guys feel about that?
Select songs, like most of the time, because these are all hard rock cover songs, we're trying to recreate it perfectly note for note with the.
We think that's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
For one, because who are we? They come to hear those bands. They want to hear Pantera. They want to hear Bullet for My Valentine. They want to hear the song the way that they know it. But go ahead.
Our job is to we're trying to emulate those perfectly. So when people hear, they go, "Wow, this sounds just like my favorite artists." I get to see 40 different artists or whatever, however many we have.
Yeah.
I kind of lost my train of thought just a little bit.
No. I see what you're saying. You're definitely trying to take them and provide that experience, and to try to recreate that as much as possible, and try to offer them as like, well, you might not be able to go out and see Disturbed or Avenged Sevenfold, but hey, we provide the next best thing. You could at least hear these songs in a live setting. And you can hear them the way they're meant to be played, and that's a good incentive for people to come out.
And
thanks, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, awesome. Yeah, and one thing we do.
You guys should have me doing PR for you.
Yeah.
You're hired.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Most on 99% of the songs we're trying to do identical to the CD, but we do Beat It from Michael Jackson, and we kind of metal it up.
Sure.
Try to make it. It's already just a classic song, great song, but we're playing the riffs pretty much the same, except we have some halftime heavy drop parts.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
There's also, we can do some in between songs, noodling or some. A lot of it is there's an expression in the song choices themselves. There's an overall band vibe. By picking these select songs, you can kind of get an idea of us through the song choices. If people say that we have a certain there's a certain taste, in our song selection. So it's kind of neat. You'd think, oh, these guys are just, sticklers. They're just playing it by the books. But, in the complete package that we've put together, there's kind of an art in the song choice, I guess.
You guys brought up earlier about how some clubs, they like you to play some of the more dancey material and some of the songs that maybe some of the girls might listen. Have you guys ever considered taking stuff that might not necessarily be in the genre and just kind of making your own arrangement of them, like taking some pop tunes or some dance, but making rock but doing more like what you said with Beat It, which is already kind of a hard rockin' song.
Yeah.
But like even taking that a step further, maybe going, finding like some other versions of like, pop tunes that might lend themselves to a rockin' cover of it. Have you guys thought about that?
Yeah, that's a real good example. I don't know if you've heard, Africa from Toto. There's like a heavy metal cover on the internet from Frog Leap Studios.
I've heard that. Yeah.
And it's so good. Like I run a karaoke show at a bar called Wild Willie's every Monday night, and I play it, and then like people like hear it for the first time, and they love it. They're like, "Oh my God, who sings this version of Africa? This is a great song. It's all metal. It's great." So I have thought about some other pop tunes as well that we could like do in our heavy metal style that everybody would still recognize, but we heavy metal it up. So.
And also, there are so many good songs out there that are in this vein that nobody's covering, that we're having fun just with that. Like
that
people,
too.
There's one Linkin Park or one Seven Dust or one Slipknot, and people are like, oh, well, you should do this Slipknot, you should do this Seven Dust.
Mm-hmm.
So we're hearing feedback from people, and as a band, we all have more favorite songs, and there's just like this, giant sea of songs that we're like, maybe we should add that one next, So we're having a lot of fun picking and learning the songs, and, we're trying to make, improvements each time we play. And if someone comes to see a show, once, and then like 2 months later they see us again, we'll probably have a couple different songs on the list. So it's not the exact same. We change the order up. We have it arranged with the guitar tunings and stuff. So it's a lot of fun, like creating the set lists.
Well, plus you guys are doing something that not a lot of cover bands do, which is diving into some of that material. And I do want to get into the song, sort of the song list in a minute, but also like the fact that you guys are covering a lot of that material that people probably aren't used to hearing live in your typical cover band setting. You can only hear Sweet Home Alabama and Mustang Sally so many times before you go crazy.
Freebird and all that stuff, and like.
Right.
I mean, that stuff is
which is all great, obviously, but you guys are doing something different.
Yeah, I mean, I used to love Led Zeppelin in Boston back when I was in high school, like a really long time ago now, and that stuff was already old when I was listening to it.
Yeah, this list, if we're basically playing from the 90s to today, that's still a span of 27 years. So if somebody was 20 years old in 1990, they're almost 50 now, so that's a big age range. These people still know that song, like if you play, a Metallica song.
Enter Sandman.
Yeah, Enter Sandman. Or if you play, a Godsmack song, like everybody knows it, whether they're, 30, 40, 50 years old. So it's nice to have, even that's a span. I mean, when you hear a classic rock band, I mean, they're going back 50 years.
Sure.
A long time. So yeah, and we've heard, you can go to Ybor City and hear, Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine upstairs somewhere.
Everywhere, everybody's always got Sweet Child of Mine, and that was a really great song, and I used to love it, but now I can't even listen to it. I just can't stand it. I can't stand it.
Right.
I mean, Slash and his, great melodies and all that stuff, and like I just can't listen to it. It's done,
Oh yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, obviously, great stuff, but you guys are focusing more on a particular era, and that makes sense. Is there any like cool older stuff that you don't hear out a lot that you might think, maybe we might want to go back and try that one of these days?
Oh, I have a song that I try to bring in as the Rocky theme song, the dun.
Oh, okay.
Dun, dun. I think a heavy version of that would be fun.
Oh, you mean Eye of the Tiger?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh yeah.
Survivor.
That'll work. I mean, Lenny, I know back in the Perfect Flaw days, you used to bust out Eruption all the time. I remember that.
Yeah, I'm probably going to bring it back into the set, into this set for fun. And there's actually some other solos. There's the Crossroads solo. I might tackle that thing, or I got Andy James. He's this, solo shredder guy that has his instrumental albums out, and he does a lot of teaching online. He's got a couple instrumental songs, and maybe people wouldn't recognize it, but it'd be really flashy and fun to throw in a 3-minute, thing from him. So some stuff like that, I'd like to do some kind of solo that's just, a guitar show-off piece, for fun. And the same thing with the drums. We have a couple ideas for just a drum solo. Let that guy, our drummer Nick, shine. You know, what's that melody called? There's this drummer.
I think that's the William Tell Overture.
That's right. That's it.
But there's this drummer, Mike Tirana. He's got a green mohawk, and he plays all this symphony stuff with this huge drum kit.
Wow.
And he tours with some metal band, and he's, phenomenal. He's like, world class, and he does a cover of this solo, and he adds the drums to the orchestra piece. And so we might, put that in the set, and everybody recognizes it. It's fun, and it's really cool.
So basically the track is playing in the background, but he's playing like drums, and he's like, it's amazing how great it is. So everybody has the familiarity of the song they've heard like a million times, like in soundtracks or on TV.
Yeah, well, the older folks probably know it from being the theme for the Lone Ranger.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't know it was the theme for the Lone Ranger. Okay. But then it has like the fun of him playing the drums to it, and it just meshes so well. It sounds so great. So that might be something that we could recreate ourselves too.
Yeah, just some. That's kind of a cool. A few little fun things to do so people will be like, what are they doing up there? That is, it's different. I like it.
Add some humor, comic relief.
Sure. So talk to me about some of the other guys that you're playing with now. You have a drummer and you have a singer. Where did you meet those guys?
Well, our drummer is actually the original singer of Perfect Flaw, Nick.
Oh, okay. I was, we were going to get into history. I believe I've got this CD right here that I was going through, and people listening can't see it, but I've got the original Perfect Flaw demo CD in my hand. It was a guy named Nick Divelli was the original singer before you took over, Chris. So he's playing drums for Disasterpiece now.
Yes. Yep.
Interesting. That's kind of cool.
On that CD, it was just me and him that recorded everything on the CD,
right.
And he was a drummer, so he played all the drums on that, and we wrote the songs together, and took about 2-3 weeks to write the songs, and it took a year to record the CD,
Yeah.
And then we went separate ways for a long time, and then we told him about this project.
He saved us on a Perfect Flaw show. Nick filled in when one of our Perfect Flaw drummers, crapped out on us and then we'll go ahead.
Yeah, and then we kind of told him about the project and brought him in, and he's like, "Oh, do you still have the old Perfect Flaw drum kit?" I'm like, "I sure do." And
nice.
He came in, and at first the drum kit was in real bad shape. It had bad heads and like a bunch of broken cymbals and stuff, and missing this and missing that. So then I had to like dump a bunch of money in that and get it going. And then now things are working out real well. He hasn't played drums in a band in a long time, so he had to get his chops back in order. But it's like leaps and bounds, sounding amazing. Like we couldn't be any happier with what he's doing.
The whole process of making the Disasterpiece band for Chris and I took about 3.5 years.
Wow.
We had the learning the songs process, which took us about, a year, 18 months to learn these songs, dissect them and everything. Then we had, about an 8-month stretch where we were making the YouTube channel of the videos for the songs that we learned and auditioning people. And then auditioning people was about a year-long process until we found 3 full band lineups before we finally had the band lineup that went to stage. We had a band 3 full times with Disasterpiece, and it was just a struggle. It's a real challenge to find people with their head on straight, that are responsible, that are reliable, that have skill, that live in the area, that have a car. All those ducks have to be in a row, but they can't be like a lawyer where they just want to do this for like a Saturday afternoon. I mean, they have to want to put some real effort and time into it. So it took us from, the time we started looking for people till we were on stage, like about 2 years. So we went through a lot of videos and phone calls and screening people and auditions and everything. And then,
yeah, we had points where we're like, okay, like we have a full band, full members. We're ready to play out in like 2 weeks. We're ready. We better start booking shows. Boom, someone quits. And because one person quit, the other person quit. Yeah,
they took a job out of state, or one person just says, "Oh, I don't really want to do this," even though they learned all the songs and we spent 6 months with them. So it's definitely, when we had that first show, it was like, it was like first step on the moon. I mean, it felt like a giant accomplishment, at least for me.
Yeah.
And that actually the first show we had was in Port Charlotte, and it was a really, really good reception. I mean, it felt like a real payoff for a change, and we're booked there.
Yeah, it's a place called The Hive in Port Charlotte. Like, I've never heard of it. We were just trying to book shows, and because we're a band that is brand new and none of the bars on the scene have ever heard of, like, no one is, like, responding to us. We're, like, emailing people. They're not getting back to us, but this was the first club that just responded to us, and we're like, okay, I guess we're going to Port Charlotte. It's a couple hours south. Like, at first we were like, oh, is that too far? There's so much stuff locally. Why do we need to go so far? But then we went down there, and we played the show, and it was amazing. We had no idea what to expect. We didn't know where to park, what the stage was like, how big it was, what kind of clientele there was.
And every song on the list we had never performed live. I mean, 3 hours of music, and every song we'd never played live, like on stage with a band for an audience. So
sure.
It was a neat thing, and that actually, Troy, the singer, had connections because he was in a band, Dark Summer, and they
okay, yeah, I know Dark Summer, yeah, I know those guys.
Singer for that band, and he had friends and connections and fans and stuff, so that led to that show, and we're super grateful to have him. He's an amazing graphic artist and performer and singer, and everyone right now in the band is really happy and excited to be playing out and playing these songs, and that's nice because a lot of times you're in a band and there's conflicts, there's difference of opinions, there's creative differences, there's logistics, and it's nice right now. I mean, everybody's like 100% happy and moving forward. So we're growing, we're getting good reviews, we're getting good feedback every single show, we're getting better and better each time we play out. We're learning, we're in any little
trying to add new songs. We're trying to add more elements to the show, like stage lighting and that sort of thing. What we're trying to do, back to the bass tracks a little bit. Now, the bass tracks, they're not just bass tracks. They're, and we did this in Perfect Flaw, actually, too. Well, the drummer is playing to a metronome in his ear. And, in Perfect Flaw, we had a bass player, but we did have extra sound effects. We'd have, like, keyboard parts, or a swooshy noise, whoosh, or just something like that. So we wanted to always play to a metronome because we found playing to a metronome where the drummer just played to the click track just made us sound really tight and really great. And if you think about it, everybody is actually used to listening to music that's played to a metronome because all music on the radio was recorded to a metronome in a professional studio. So that makes it sound exactly right. There's never, we played it too fast, or we rushed it, or we slowed down here. Like, it's never an issue. It's always like if you play just a little bit, just a couple beats per minute too fast or too slow, it can change the mood and the feeling of the song. And as a local band, or original band, you're going for a certain feeling, and those national bands, they're going for a certain feeling with that too. So we try to replicate that perfectly. So we were always using the tracks before, but before it was just for like keyboards here and maybe like extra sound effects here and there. So in the new project, so we have the bass, but we also have, like on Nightmare from Avenged Sevenfold, they have the piano, ding, ding, ding. Of course, yeah. And all the intros, like Megadeth, Symphony of Destruction, it has that little symphony part that goes, la, la.
Oh, nice. You guys included that in there, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Fun.
Or in White Zombie, there's the, I don't try anything, I just do it. Want to try me? And the police siren and stuff like that.
All of it, yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. How difficult was it to find the right singer? Because I know going back to replicating all those sounds, I mean, there's only so much one person can do with their voice to make to sound identical. And I mean, being a singer, I can tell you that it's not always that easy to replicate stuff to the T when it comes to the studio. And I mean, how has that process been with Troy? Has he had a lot of say in what particular songs you're doing or how he's singing? Do you guys give him a little bit of latitude for that?
Oh yeah, when he first came in, he was just in an original band, and of course original bands, play for like a maximum of 45 minutes usually. So, he at first had a lot of apprehension, like, okay, well I got to do all these songs, and they're all heavy, and they're screaming, a lot of screaming, and it's for a long, you're doing it for 3 hours worth of music, so that's a lot of stuff to cover. So, at first he was like, not sure, can I sustain this for this long? Can I do this for this long? And then, it just started out slow, and, like, okay, make sure you bring a gallon of water, and, the tea and the lemons and all the right combination of, look online and get tips from these people.
He built up his endurance for singing.
Endurance.
He tackles the songs. There are some that he sounds, really like. I mean, any singer that you have, even if you took one of these singers you took, Pantera or Damage Plan guy, and he was doing covers, he's going to sound more like some of the songs and less like the others. But
yeah, that's just the nature of voices,
If you start with it, if you have a good singer overall, they sound good, and then, we worked with the arrangements of the songs and which ones he wanted to put first or later in the set and stuff like that. And
certain songs are really hard for him to do, like where there's a lot of strain, so we don't have those all back to back. We strategically those in the actual set.
Were
there any songs that he took a look at and were just like, nope, not doing it?
I can't think of a song that he did that, but at first he thought he wanted us to tune all these songs down a half a step. I remember, you're gonna have to tune that one down. And the way these songs work, if they're not in the right tuning that you know them as, it doesn't sound like the same song.
Yeah.
So we just started with all the songs he was comfortable with, and as he built up his endurance and his ability, he got more and more confident. And then, I'll try this, and he would be like. He would try something and it would sound perfect to us.
Yeah, we'd be like, what? Like, you thought that was going to be a problem? And we'd be like, wow. Like, the perfect example was like the White Zombie Thunder Kiss 65. He's like, he's all, grungy sounding and stuff. And then we heard him sing it, like, you sound better than Rob Zombie, Like,
yeah, like, is he like trying to do an impression of Rob, or he's just trying to do his own thing, or?
A little bit of both, like you said, everybody has their own voice, so he has his own natural voice. What I like about his voice is everything he does just sounds really, really musical. No matter what note he's hitting can sound musical. Like the Michael Jackson, he isn't replicating Michael Jackson's.
That's tough to do.
Yeah.
There was only one Michael.
Without helium on tap,
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that too.
So, we just let him do his thing, like... We're like, hey, here's the song, and he just does his thing, and that's about it. All there is to it. It's not. We're not putting too much thought into it.
That's good. That's good. I mean, you definitely, when it comes to singers, and especially choosing material, it's got to be the right thing. Because there would be sometimes, because like sometimes I'll like think about like certain songs. I was like, nope, can't do that one. Sorry.
I don't think we have any like brutal songs. We don't have Cannibal Corpse or Black Dahlia Murder or something on the list. I mean, they're
right.
They're in a range that when we picked out the songs, we kind of thought of what kind of singer is going to be able to sing these songs. And even when Chris and I were making the list before we had the band, some of them we kind of dropped off from the list because we're like, it's too different, or it's just, it doesn't fit in with the type of singing. And, we got an idea. I had an idea kind of what kind of singer, we needed, basically like, a guy in his 30s with the gritty sound, like that can cover, Godsmack and Metallica and Pantera and stuff. They sound similar already, So that helps, like picking out appropriate songs that work together in a set.
Of course. So let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about now, Chris. I know you were there from the beginning for Perfect Flaw. Lenny, you were there almost from the beginning. How did you guys meet? Did you guys know each other before Perfect Flaw?
Yeah, we had a band in Michigan.
Okay. Are you both from Michigan?
Both lived there.
Yeah, I'm from Michigan. Chris lived in Michigan. And
okay.
Originally, I worked at a powerhouse gym in Michigan. And in the plaza, there was a deli, and the sandwich guy at that deli was a drummer for Chris's band. And I would go there on my breaks from the gym and talk to this guy, and then at one point, they were looking for a bass player in their band, and I played guitar. And he said, you should come to my band rehearsal and meet the guys in the band. They want a bass player. And so I did, and I met Chris in this band, Crimson Death, which was our
good name.
Yeah, our first, musical enterprise that was, horrible.
Yeah, it was really bad.
You got to start.
That's what all first bands are supposed to be. They're supposed to be horrible. It's fine. It's okay. We'll allow it.
And actually, I was in a band before that band that I was trying to do some covers with, and those guys wanted nothing to do with covers, so they kind of like broke up and like reformed without me, and then
Right? Oh yeah, that old trick.
Yeah, that old trick. Oh, we're all starting school and jobs and stuff, and then in October, when I'm back in school, they're back together without me. And,
Wait a tick.
yeah, but we ended up playing with that band at shows alongside Crimson Death, so we were still friends and everything.
We were just like, screw this weather, let's move down to Florida and try out Florida, you know.
Okay, so you guys ended up moving down at the same time, and
Yep.
what made you choose Florida as opposed to like New York or L.A. or something?
It was either like Florida or California.
Just weather.
The weather.
Yeah.
That was it.
Michigan drives a lot of people as refugees of the cold and gray, and you know.
True.
I wasn't necessarily thinking of music-wise, but you know, we landed down here.
True. I mean, you know, Florida, we're not LA, but we are. It does cost less to live out here, so we've got that going for us.
Right. Still great weather all the time, great beaches, you know, lots and lots of stuff to do. There's always fine stuff to do. Like in Michigan and Wisconsin, the snow just shuts thing down, so there's less opportunity.
No doubt. And so Perfect Flaw, I know that first CD was out in like 2007.
Yes.
Was the band like around like before that, like around 05, 06?
No, I just met Nick kind of randomly. Like I just got a phone call out of the blue from a bass player that said like, "Hey, are you a guitar player? Oh, so and so said we're looking for a guitar player, and so recommended you." And then so I just met up with. I had just gotten out of this other band. Another original band, and I was just like, oh, I'm done doing music. I'm done, you know. And so I just get this call, and then I'm gonna meet up with Nick at a rehearsal studio called Circle Studios. I never talked to him before, knew nothing about him, and then I'm just thinking, oh, this is gonna suck. This is gonna be boring. But at least I'm going to just bring my half stack and I get to crank it up and fool around and be loud for an hour. You know, like that was literally all I had, my expectation going into it. And then it turned out like he was really great musically. He could sing guitar and play at the same time, had lots of great melodies. And we just, you know, we used the same picks. We used the same guitar strings. Like there was a lot of common ground there. And, you know, we just totally hit it off musically, and then, you know, like we ended up writing all these songs in like 3 weeks, and then like recording the whole album with just us two together because we didn't have a band yet. Yeah,
at that time I wasn't basically talking to Chris. I was doing my own thing, you know. So
drama.
I mean, not any drama. Just
people went separate ways.
I was done with the band for a little bit. I was doing my other career choice. And then, Chris is, not to cut you short, but he got that whole project off the ground and they were playing shows for a while, you know. So then later when that, you know, came apart, then I ended up, Chris got a hold of me, and then I kind of joined, and, you know, we made like an evolution of Perfect Flaw of like, okay, well, let's do a couple things like this, and then we started building with other band members, and you know, it continued on with Perfect Flaw for the section of time that I was in the band. So
sure.
There was a whole, you know, Perfect Flaw 1.0 that I wasn't even around for. So that's how long that was going.
Yeah. So basically, you know, we, you know, wrote these songs in 3 weeks. We're like, okay, well, we don't have any band members to play them live with. Well, okay, well, why don't we try recording a CD? And then like we recorded it, and we were like really meticulous, and it took like a year, and we still didn't have any band members yet. So we're like, okay, well, now that we have the CD, we can just hand the CD to somebody, and they can hear what we sound like. If you like what you hear, then come join. And that was basically how it worked. And it was kind of like almost like a repeat with Disasterpiece. We're like, okay, well, this is what we want to do. We don't have any band members. We're just going to start recording YouTube videos. And now that we have the YouTube videos, we can show people. You know, now that things are different. You know, now that everybody uses digital downloading, streaming, YouTube. Back then, CDs were still kind of around, you know. So just almost did the same thing. Here's our 40 YouTube covers. Here's us playing, and then that way we met people. And so I think we went through like 3 drummers. Like we had the one drummer where we were practicing in like a big warehouse. and then we had our second drummer, and then finally Nick, and then we had same thing, 3 singers. We had our first singer, and then a second singer, and then finally Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are each that were with us for some small period of time or a large period of time that worked, and in between those was lots of auditions and stuff, like a lot of listening and going through Craigslist and everything. And then as a tip, if you ever want to, for the listeners, anyone that wants to make a band, basically do everything yourself. The drums, buy the speakers, buy the bass, learn all the songs, have the rehearsal space, then make your ads, and do that for a couple years, and eventually you're going to find people. But if that's like, you almost got to provide it for them, to get the ball rolling.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, you're not kidding. I know you guys had a complete setup. You guys owned your own drums, your own bass, all the speakers. Like I remember even other bands that I played with shows with you. Like we would always like joke amongst ourselves, like, oh, here they come with their freaking like 20 stacks, looking like we're playing Madison Square Garden in the freaking club. Like I remember some of these guys would be like, who do these guys think they are with all this gear? Like,
like we get that reaction a lot. Like our goal is, okay, well, if we're trying to become, our goal was to become a signed household name band on the radio or whatever. That was our goal. We're like, okay, well, we got to just emulate what these famous bands are doing down to the T. Like, what if we invest? Like someone might buy a Les Paul. A Les Paul might cost $3,000-$4,000. So okay, well, you could buy a Les Paul, or you could buy like a bunch of speakers. It costs the same amount of money. It's really not that different if you think about it.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, if there's something to be said for for looking the part and really kind of acting the part and just kind of getting into that mindset. So no, I never had a problem with it. And I'm not saying that people did, but I was
they did.
People did.
Yeah.
I mean, some people may have. I never had a problem with it. I just like, I got it. I'm like, yeah, no, I totally see what you're doing. It makes sense.
Double-edged sword the whole way. Like people either like loved it or hated it. People would see it and be like, hey, who do these guys think they are? Literally, like you just said. Like, oh, these guys must be rich. Oh, their parents bought all this stuff. We got that all the time, and then
people get weird about stuff like that, and it's most of the time it's just insecure people wanting to make excuses for themselves or make themselves feel better about what they're doing. And to your point, I think starting any kind of band, whether it's an original band or a cover band, people don't realize how much work goes into just getting it off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, especially with the cover band, and now the luxury you have with the cover band is that you guys have kind of done the heavy lifting already. You've kind of done and laid the foundation. So it's like now you've got songs, you've got pretty much a repertoire. Now, now you guys can finally start enjoying the fruits of your labor and start playing shows and making money and having fun and all that. So
yes.
Yeah, it must be a pretty good feeling. I'm very happy to see you guys out there doing your thing. And
so much time and effort.
Oh, I know. I mean, I've known you guys for a long time. I know how hard you guys work on doing everything and how much you put into it. There's no one can argue how dedicated you guys are. I mean, that's no question.
It's a great compliment.
No question when it comes to that. So I'm definitely happy to see you guys doing your thing again. I do have to ask though. I mean, now that Disasterpiece is out doing their thing, you're going to be doing more shows, and has there been any talk of like doing more Perfect Flaw stuff now that you've kind of been working hard getting the cover band thing off the ground? You could still do that, but obviously, have you thought about doing a few original shows here and there, or does that interest you at all, or do you have any desire to do your own stuff again?
Not at this point. I mean, if there was some type of opportunity where there was like some crazy lottery winning odds thing where a record label was like, hey, we think you're a great band, but do you do originals? Like, okay, sure, we can come up with stuff, But other than that, we have from doing the originals, from doing the covers, we have like a whole list of like pros and cons of each one. For example, doing the originals, you're only on stage, say, like at the most, like 40 minutes usually. So it's like, okay, what happens is like all your friends and family, you beg them to come out, and then they're either there way too early and they have to listen to other bands that they don't like or not familiar with or don't care about because they're just there to see you only.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They either come too early or they come too late and they miss it, and that happened all the time. versus being in a cover band. We're playing there all night long from 9 o'clock p.m. to 1 a.m. so they can come early, check it out for half an hour, leave. If they have to work the next day, they can stay there all night if they want to.
It's free. These bars, it's free to come in and listen to Disasterpiece show, whereas you're going to get $10, $15 cover charge to see a local band, And, these bars are, they're, solid venues, whereas like local venues, I mean, you know what you're getting,
Yep. You don't even have to say it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so, like someone can come in for someone can show up at midnight and see that last set. Oh, hey, so-and-so's just
see a whole hour of our Disasterpiece show, So
right.
So there's so many benefits, basically what he's saying, that it's hard to, imagine giving up all those benefits to play 5 songs live that you wrote yourself, But, if there was some, crazy opportunity, we could still, put those together.
Yeah. You never know. And the thing about that sort of thing, playing original music, people don't realize how difficult it is in terms of getting paid and getting an ideal, set time and situation, that you really have to love what you're doing in order to do that. So it's I think the good thing is that if you guys ever wanted to, you could absolutely do both, but again, it's got to be something you guys want to do, and and I'm sure if and when that happens, then we'll talk about it. But yeah,
was there great. Right now we don't have so much of that incentive, because we're these bars, they're hiring their Friday night entertainment, and they're actually hiring the entertainment. They're paying for them.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean,
I did want to ask you how your Steel Panther gig went in Orlando.
Yeah, that went great, and for those of you who don't know, listening, my band Vertebraker, we opened up for Steel Panther earlier this month in November, and it really we got the call less than a week before we got that show. It came so quickly, and it was so unexpected, but thankfully I've been lucky enough to meet the right people who thought that my band was a good fit for that thing, and it was incredible, though. It was, like you guys know, I've been doing, this just about as long as you guys have, and it's a great feeling, a great sense of validation, and it was a great opportunity, and I don't know if I'll ever get that kind of opportunity again, but I was, we had a blast with it, so.
That's great. Yeah,
thank you for asking.
Both big giant fans of Steel Panther, so we love them.
Yeah.
We love them.
That would be the band to be,
Yeah.
It'd be somebody.
I'll tell you, those guys couldn't have been nicer, by the way. Really just great guys. Once they found out that we were just a local band, we got asked, they loved it. They were just incredibly supportive and nice. So it was a good time all around.
That's great. Yeah, they look like they're having a lot of fun. They got nothing to be angry about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, those guys, really in similar positions where they were hardworking guys for many years, and they found something that worked for them, and now look at them now. So, but thank you guys for asking about that, by the way. But yeah, no. So, Disasterpiece is out there. You guys are taking bookings. You guys probably have a few set places where you like to play. Where can people find you online and find out where you're playing?
Facebook, we have our Disasterpiece page. If you can either look up Disasterpiece or just DP Tampa Bay, and you'll see the page. We have our show dates listed on there. Lots of photos and videos and stuff. A lot of reviews.
And it is Disasterpiece, all just one word. There's a few other Disasterpieces out there. There's like a...
Oh, hi.
Is it facebook.com/Disasterpiece?
DP Tampa Bay.
/DP Tampa Bay, okay. People might think that means something else.
I know.
Hey.
Yeah, we're just... Yeah, we didn't even think about it. We're like, hey, we're going...
This is going to be a different kind of show. No.
Yeah. Janitortures.
No. Not that kind of DP.
Nope. We're keeping it PG-13 on this deal. But all right, that's great, guys. I'm so happy for you guys. Thank you guys for coming to this, and people listening, check out Disasterpiece if you're in the Tampa area.
All right, thank you so much for having us on. It was a blast. I had a ton of fun.
Anytime, guys. Let's do this again.
All right.
Thanks once again to Chris and Lenny from Disasterpiece and formerly of Perfect Flaw. Those guys, they were old friends of mine for many years and are still in the Tampa St. Pete area. I think it's really cool to hear their perspective on transitioning from an original project to a cover band. That's one of the things I love about this show is where you get different kinds of people in here, different kinds of musicians, and even non-musicians in here, and just hearing these different perspectives and hearing all these different stories. And yeah, as far as transitioning into a cover band, I can't say I blame them for making that choice. A lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to be, to be a band that plays your own original music. It's a lot different from from playing in a cover band. So again, I don't fault them at all for making that choice. And it seems to be what they want to do. It seems to be that they're very happy and they're having a lot of fun and making some money, and good for them. I've always enjoyed going to see a really good cover band, especially if they do a good job with the material, and if they play songs that I like. So I mean, Disasterpiece is the kind of band that I would want to go see if I was out with my friends, on the weekends and having a good time, and I'd want to go hear a band like that. So that's awesome. I definitely check out Disasterpiece if you're in the Tampa St. Pete area, or like I said, I can't really blame them for making that choice. I know that I've even talked to the other guys in my band about possibly doing, not necessarily going full time into it like what Chris and Lenny are doing, but we've I recently went out and saw another local band that I'm really good friends with, 21 to Burn. Those guys have been doing shows, both original shows and cover shows, and I remember going to see that band and thinking like, wow, that's kind of cool. And then I'm like, wait, why is my band not doing this? So it's we and again, it's not high on our priority list right now, but you never know. Maybe one day we might do something like that. We'll still do our original shows and still put out our own music, but I don't know, that might be fun to do. Play a few cover gigs, play a bunch of songs that we like, and who knows? That might be an interesting way to promote our original stuff. So you never know you never know what could happen in the future. I do like how Disasterpiece is focusing on hard rock from specifically from the early '90s through today. I think that's a really smart approach, especially as this generation, I should say the generation that grew up on that material, especially as they get older and they get more nostalgic and they want to go out and hear those songs. I think it's really smart. I know that Chris and Lenny's approach regarding using tracks and wanting perfection, that may, I could see how that could stir up a little controversy, especially with other musicians and even some other fans. Like I said, whether or not you agree with that philosophy, I've known these guys for a long time, and they've always kind of had that approach to them, and everything from they've always been very meticulous as far as what type of gear they use and how they like to play their songs and how they like to present themselves on stage. And I'll just say this: there is no wrong way to do this. There's no right or wrong way to express yourself. Music is subjective. It is art. It is every band is different. Every band operates differently, and whether that's whether that is something you agree with or not, it's something that they've done for a long time. They've stuck by it, for better or worse, and and I know that these guys have worked very hard to be doing what they're doing, and I'm glad to see that it's sort of starting to work out for them as far as as far as them getting out there and playing out regularly again and having fun. Can't really ask for much more than that, and I think they're doing what they want to do. So, whether or not you agree with them not having a bass player or using tracks or, wanting to sound exactly like the record or trying to replicate that, whether that's your cup of tea, whether that's not, it doesn't really matter because they're doing what they want to do, and they have every right to do that if they want. So that's really all you can say about that. As far as upcoming events, It's the holiday season. It's December. Vertebraker doesn't really have too many gigs scheduled at the moment. We're all kind of taking some time off, spending some time with our families. It is the holiday season after all. So obviously, those of you, if you're listening to this, we hope that you're having a wonderful holiday with your family, friends, and or loved ones. Wherever you may be. So that's kind of what we're doing. I'm sure by the time probably February or March, I'm sure we'll have some shows lined up. We'll see. I mean, it's too early to tell right now. I know that I have a acoustic show that I'm doing on Saturday, February 10th at Winfield's in Satellite Beach. I will be there with Justin Weir of 21 to Burn, Dominic St. Charles of Earn, and we will be opening for none other than John Corabi, who many know as the former lead singer of Motley Crue, and he was also one of the guitar players in the band Rat for many years. He's currently in a band called the Dead Daisies. Really just really well respected veteran, and just world traveled. John Corabi's an incredible musician, an incredible singer, and it's going to be a real pleasure for me to open up for him. I was really a fan of the record that he did in 1994 with Motley Crue. He was only with that band for one album, but he's a fantastic musician. So it'll be really cool to open up for John Corabi. Hopefully I can get him on the podcast one of these days. I'm crossing my fingers. We'll see as far as that goes. But that is it for this episode of the Phoenix Report. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at JackXConnor. Like me on Facebook at facebook.com/JackConnorMusic. Feel free to check out my band, Vertebraker, at facebook.com/VertebrakerBand. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, make sure you email me at jackconnorpodcast@gmail.com or tweet me with the hashtag Phoenix Report. If you're listening to this on YouTube or iTunes, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, go back and listen to all the other episodes. Thank you very much for listening. This has been the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.